Sometimes techniques can be so hard you have to practice and try over and over, and you need tools and lots of supplies. Let's not do that today. Today we're going to keep it simple with just one color ink. So let's get started. For the first background I have some distress ink, a piece of acetate and my card base. I add some ink to the acetate, I spray a little bit of water and then I hold the acetate at an angle over the card and I press it down, but I hold the acetate on one part and then just slide it over the card, and there you go, one colored background. And I'm going to color another background now I'm at it. So I add some oxide ink to my desk, I spray some water and then I use a big brush to add the ink to my card. I add the ink in all directions so I get a nice base layer down on my card. And this will give you a pretty smooth blended base layer. And then I let that dry too. Once the card is dry I'm going to spray some drops by squeezing the bottle halfway. And I'm going to do the same for the other card, and I let that set for a bit and you can see the lighter spots appear. And the longer you let it set, the lighter the spots will become. You can blot it or let it air dry. I decided to blot and then I added some more of those drops and I blotted right away, which will give you some more subtle spots. Because this ink is translucent and I added it with the acetate, it's a little bit lighter so the drops or the splats will be more subtle. For the next background I add a card in the spray save tool. I have a video on that, I will link to that in the description box if you're interested. And then I use my shimmer spray. I only add it at the top and then I spray some water to help the ink drip down. And this will give you a really simple ombre background. And then I put that aside to dry. Next I have a card slightly bigger than my greenish background. And I'm going to add my ink straight with the ink pad. Also a fast way to color a background. Adding the ink this way looks a bit stripy, but it will blend nicely when drying. Now this is the color after drying. It's way more smooth and a bit lighter than it was when I added it on my card. And this will make a nice second layer for my textured card. Next I have the Tim Holtz Folk Flower die. I add the card in place and then I add my card and die at an angle in my die cutting machine. This will make it easier for the machine to pick it up with one corner first. Then I run it back and forth and then I turn my die so the other corner is first and I run it through the machine again. Then I use my nail brush to press out all the bits and pieces, which is pretty easy to do. Now I'm going to add some glue to the back using a sponge. But I'm not the only one who's keeping it simple, because for this video I've teamed up with a bunch of my wonderful crafty friends, Justine, Laurel and Ardit, and they are all also keeping it very simple with some wonderful but gorgeous techniques. And I've seen the end results, you don't want to miss this, so make sure to stick until the end. And once I have added the glue on the complete background, I'm going to add it to my second layer. I've added the card panels to a white note card and now I'm going to add a bit of ink to a white card. And this is going to be my sentiment. I cut out the word love and added that to a white mat and now I'm inking the edge. So it's a bit less bright white. I add some glue to the back and I glue the sentiment in place. And this is my finished card. Super simple, just one color. Next I'm going to go on for another layer with my pink card. I have a stencil. I add some ink on the stencil straight with the ink pad. And then I'm using a big soft brush to brush off all the ink. I'm brushing in different directions. And this way you will get a really subtle pattern on your card. And to add a little bit more texture I have my piece of acetate. I hold that above my card, so slightly over the card. Don't let it land on the card. Then I spray a bit of water and I tilt my card. I spray a bit more water at the bottom. I let it set for a little bit and then I'm going to blot. And this will soften the complete look on the right side. Now I'm going to use my heat tool to dry. And this will give you a bit of a textured edge. I'm going to do the same again, but now on a smaller piece of the card. Then I blot again. And now I'm going to use the heat tool to let it dry. The heat tool will help you get a nice textured stripe. And I'm doing it again to get an even lighter edge on my card. Then I'm using the heat tool again to get one more textured stripe on the side. For the next step, make sure your card is dry. I add some ink on my desk and I spray some water. Then I add my acetate on the card. I pick up the ink with my brush and then I tap on it to get some fun splats. Now I'm going to put this card aside to dry. Once my card was dry, I add a bit of ink on the edge of the card. I add some ink on a white piece of card with the ink that was still on my ink blending tool. And then I cut a sentiment and I also cut it once out of white. And I add that to my card and I added my card to a white note card. Super simple. And then my last card with the ombre background. I have a stencil, I add that on my card and then I spray some water. I carefully lift up the stencil, I do that right away. And then I let the water set for a bit and you can already see the subtle pattern appear. I just wait for a little while and then I blot. And this will give you a really subtle and pretty texture. I let the card dry completely. I colored a piece of card with the ink spray and cut out my sentiment. And now I'm going to glue that in place. I have my card on the make art station with the magnets and the magnetic ruler. And this way I can get my sentiment on straight. The make art station works as an extra set of hands, which is always great to have around. And this is my finished card. Really simple with some very subtle texture and lots of sparkle. I hope you are inspired to grab your favorite coloring and give these fun techniques a try. But there's more inspiration waiting for you over on Justine's channel. She is going to do simple ink blending for stunning cards. And she totally rocks at ink blending, so you don't want to miss that. Her video is right here as well as in the description box with the links to Ardit's and Laura's channel also. So make sure to hop on over there and say hi. And as always, make sure to keep on crafting.